So everybody has their needs, individual needs. Now depending upon which guna you are situated in, you will find comfort in certain kinds of activities. A person who is situated in sattva guna won't delight in fights or confrontation. So such a person is fit to become a brahmana. So a brahmana is a peaceful fellow. He is interested in studying the scriptures, giving scriptural knowledge to others, doing yajnas for oneself and doing yajnas on behalf of others, and dana pratigraha, receiving charity and giving charity. So a brahmana who is in sattva guna finds it very natural to do these things.
Yeah, it sort of falls in line with his psyche basically.
Now the Kshatriyas, they're passionate. When you have passion, it's natural for you to want to administer, want to get involved in management, and that passion is anywhere there. You can't artificially suppress it. So then what happens is, and that passion is required for the upkeep of society also. So it's a win-win thing. You have that need to vent out your passion. A brahmana is adept at dealing with the internal world. A kshatriya is adept at dealing with the external world. Certain people are there who are not very much inclined to have their own thing. If you force them, you should have an initiative of your own, they'll feel uncomfortable. So let them be comfortable, they're happy assisting others. What's your problem?
I think it's a personality type which has unfortunately got degraded as a work type.
Abhimanyu was the son of Arjuna. You know this famous episode of Chakravyuha, and he was unjustly killed by 6 other Maharathis who combined together to kill Abhimanyu. Such a great warrior, but 6 people had to combine together to defeat him. And Abhimanyu was just a teenager. Now at such a young age, he had reached super specialization.
Ram Prabhuji. So we continue with our chapter 18 journey, and last time we were on the basically the 4 caste systems, so-called caste systems, which we said that over a period of time they sort of have degenerated, and the original purpose of creating it of Krishna was to probably oil the machinery. It sort of has got distributed in terms of work types, and then good work types and not acceptable work types. So let's continue with the varna system.
Yeah. See, basically, the ecosystem, if you see the ecosystem, see God's creation of the ecosystem, every species of life is contributing towards the balance of the ecology. At the same time, the individual needs of each species is also met simultaneously. Isn't it miraculous? Each species is taking care of itself. At the same time, it's contributing towards the balance of the ecology also.
Yeah.
Similarly, when it comes to human society, the varana system, through the varana system, what happens is a person might be situated whatever place this person is situated. So the person, while fulfilling their own needs, simultaneously they are simultaneously able to fulfill the needs of society.
Correct. Oiling the needs of the entire society in their own way.
In their own way, while taking care of their own personal needs also.
Yeah.
So everybody has their needs, individual needs. Now depending upon which guna you are situated in, you will find comfort in certain kinds of activities. A person who is situated in sattva guna won't delight in fights or confrontation. So such a person is fit to become a brahmana. So a brahmana is a peaceful fellow. He is interested in studying the scriptures. So the duties of the brahmana is yajan, yajan, patan, patan, dana, pratigraha. Patan, patan, studying the scriptures, giving scriptural knowledge to others, yajan, yajan, doing yajnas for oneself and doing yajnas on behalf of others, and dana pratigraha, receiving charity and giving charity. These are the occupations of a Brahmana. So a Brahmana who is in Sattva Guna finds it very natural to do these things.
Yeah.
Sit in one place and study the scriptures.
It sort of falls in line with his psyche, basically.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Dana Pratigraha is there. A Brahmana receives charity. Why a Brahmana receives charity is because, like in the modern day world, professors can be considered to be roughly to be like Brahmanas only. Professor's duty is to do research work and to teach that research work to students. Now, a lot of professors, especially in technological institutions, they are actually engineers themselves. But rather than pursuing engineering, they are pursuing professorship. And as professors, they may not be able to take out time to do engineering work. And because they are contributing towards society through their research work, they are maintained by the rest of society and they are given some kind of a salary there, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, professors, now of course in the modern day world there is no concept of charity. But in the Vedic system, Brahmanas were like professors. Their job was to research the Vedic scriptures.
Yeah, and communicate.
And then educate the rest of the society about what is the essence of the Vedas and how these Vedas can be applied in their personal lives to grow materially and spiritually. And because they are contributing in this invaluable way, they are being maintained by the rest of society through charity.
Correct.
Now, why there is no fixed income to a Brahmana? Because if a Brahmana starts getting fixed income, then the Brahmana becomes dependent on someone else.
Correct.
So when you become dependent upon someone else, you can't give them advice impartially.
And probably there is no drive for continuing with the research work because the material benefits are automatically taken care of in any case of a Brahman if you get a fixed compensation there.
That's very interesting way of putting. See, at one level, it's about stopping dependence. It's like this one story of Chanakya. So once Chandragupta Maurya, he asked Chanakya, why did you give me this advice? He kind of demanded. Chanakya said, if you ask this question once more from me, I'm going to quit. I'm going to stop advising you. Because you can't come under the obligation of your maintainer. If you come under their obligation, you can't give them advice impartially.
Unbiasedly.
Without any bias. See, once you depend on them, then rather than thinking about their welfare, you start thinking about if I give him the right advice, whether I'll get to my salary next time or not.
Correct.
So that is why at one level, this is why the Brahmana doesn't get fixed charity, doesn't get fixed income, depends on charity. At a deeper level, a Brahmana depends on charity. Why? Because depending upon charity means indirectly depending upon God. By God's will, whatever comes, I'll accept it. Because Brahmana is meant to be extremely spiritually advanced. Because the Brahmana, with the extra time that is available to study the scriptures, the Brahmana doesn't just study the scriptures, but also applies the scriptures and grows spiritually.
Yeah.
And has got deeper insights through which the Brahmana is able to guide the rest of society.
Communicate to the rest of them, educate the rest of them also.
Yes.
Correct.
So that's how the Brahmanas operate. Now the Kshatriyas, they're passionate, as I said. Passion, when you have passion, it's natural for you to want to administer, want to get involved in management. And that passion is anywhere there. You can't artificially suppress it. Correct? So then what happens is, and that passion is required for the upkeep of society also. So it's a win-win thing. You have that need to vent out your passion. A Kshatriya finds it very difficult to sit in one place and study the scriptures. The Kshatriya, for a Kshatriya, a person who is passionate, finds it natural to go about and manage people, manage things. A Brahmana is adept at dealing with the internal world. A Kshatriya is adept at dealing with the external world. And unless the Kshatriya finds something to do externally, that fellow will feel out of sorts. So that is why people who are passionate are given an occupation which suits their psyche, psychophysical nature.
Correct.
Similarly, the Vaishyas and Shudras also. Certain people are there who are not very much inclined to have their own thing. They're just happy assisting someone else. And if you put them, if you force them, kind of, you should have an initiative of your own, they'll feel uncomfortable.
Correct.
So let them be comfortable. They're happy assisting others. What's
Correct.
your problem? So
I think it's a personality type which has unfortunately got degraded as a work type, really.
yeah.
And then hence not looked up to over a period of time. I think that's the degradation basically which has happened.
See how degradation happened. I'll come to that in a minute. But before that, in the Vedic system, education was also was imparted keeping in mind the varana of the people. So, for example, Abhimanyu, who was the son of Arjun, you know, this famous episode of Chakravyuha, and he was unjustly killed by 6 other Maharathis who combined together to kill Abhimanyu.
Yeah.
So he was such a great warrior that 6 people had to combine together to defeat him. And Abhimanyu was just a teenager at that time. Now, at such a young age, he had reached super specialization. Why? Because his formative years, his schooling wasn't consumed by things which he would never use for the rest of his life. See, in the modern educational system, a lot of times during our formative years, when the brain is very much receptive to new knowledge, when we are very much in a position to absorb new information during our childhood years, a lot of our education is wasted learning things which we never use for the rest of our life. It's wasted education.
Right.
But in the Gurukul system of education, education was tailor-made. So right from a very young age, from the age of 5 or 6, people were given education according to their varana. Brahmanas were taught in-depth Shastras. Kshatriyas were given some knowledge of the Shastras. But then, because they are going to use warfare and other administrative techniques later in life, education was given accordingly. So then what happens is, growing up, you reach super specialization at a very young age.
Pretty early age, yeah.
And then your productive life starts in your teenage years only. As against the modern day world, where a person actually starts becoming productive maybe in the late 40s and 50s.
Right.
Because who am I? The person is not able to figure out. And then, you know, then maybe in the 30s you realize, oh, I'm meant to be this. And then you start honing new set of skills which you never honed during your younger years. See how beautiful this varna system is. Now again, it's very important to understand that how was it determined whether the child is suitable for Brahman education, Kshatriya, or what education is suitable for the child. How was it determined? It's explained that the top criteria was what is the inclination of the child. See, the guru, the teachers, elders, they should collectively take this decision at the Gurukul. This fellow is fit for Brahminical education. This fellow is suitable for Kshatriya education. And there should be a probation period. Observation for the first 2 years. And during those years of observation, if it was observed that initially we determined that he is fit to be a Brahmana, but looks like, you know, he's a little more active, looks like he's beating up other students.
So give him Kshatriya training.
Give him Kshatriya training. So that thing was determined. The final call was taken after 2 years. But the primary criteria, now of course, the primary criteria here is proclivity of the child. But the parentage of the children used to give a lead.
Important determinant,
Used to give a lead. See, naturally, if parents are Brahmanas, genetics does play a role.
Correct.
Parents are Brahmanas.
So if parents are doctors, it's unlikely that, you know, the child will start wanting to be an engineer from day one, really. He will show some proclivity.
Some proclivity will be there. But at the same time, just because parents are doctors doesn't mean that the child automatically becomes a doctor. Similarly, simply because parents are Brahmanas, a child automatically doesn't become a Brahmana. But the parentage of the child plays an important lead there, correct? So that it becomes easy to determine. And also, see, this is the reason, just to make the life of the children easy. See, if your varana is determined early, and if you're given appropriate education early, life becomes so much better even materially. So when life becomes so much better materially,
focused, yeah.
it becomes focused. And then with a focused, fulfilling life, you can turn towards spirituality also early on. See, in the modern day, what's happening is your material life is not settled till your 60s sometimes. And when your material life only you're struggling to get settled, where is the time to turn to spirituality?
Yeah.
So in the Vedic system, because material life is taken care of very smoothly in this way, you have much more time left to turn to spiritual endeavors. So keeping in mind the overall development of the children, the system is being made. Now, this is another reason. Just to ensure that children have this good upbringing, the Vedic culture always emphasizes to avoid inter-varna marriages.
I see.
Because when there is marriage within the same varna, then what happens is it becomes easier to determine the varna of the offspring. Brahmana marries a Kshatriya, or a Kshatriya marries a Vaishya. Then they might, get married because of their own selfish interests. But who is going to suffer is the next generation. Because it will be difficult, all the more difficult, it will become a challenge to determine the varna of the offspring there. So, the whole system here is think in terms of long run, think in terms of the bigger picture, and don't go really by your vasanas. Vasanas means I like this, I don't like this. Don't go by your choices.
Yeah.
Go by what's good for society, and you do some adjustment. Try to get married within the same varna. You may or may not like it. See, the system is there, keeping in mind the welfare of the entire society. See, the point here is Brahmanas are the head, Kshatriyas are the arms, Vaishyas are the belly, and the Shudras are the legs. So the system is Brahmanas give guidance to the entire society, to the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Kshatriyas give protection to the entire society. Kshatriya give protection to Brahmanas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Vaishyas, they create wealth not just for themselves, but for Kshatriyas and Brahmanas also, and for Shudras also. So in this way, it's a mutual cooperative system. Every varna serves every other varna.
Correct.
But at the same time, even though it's a mutually cooperative system, and actually the system works in the best possible way when each varna understands their own strengths, their own weaknesses. Brahmana realizes, yes, I am very good in research and in knowledge acquisition, but when it comes to protecting myself, I am not adept. I have to depend on Kshatriyas. Or when it comes to my maintenance, I have to depend on the Vaishyas.
Yeah.
And the Brahmana acknowledges the role of other members. Similarly, Kshatriya also understands that I have got a certain role to play, other people have a role to play, and we mutually cooperate. Vaishyas also. Okay, this is ideal Varna system. The system gets corrupt when each member starts highlighting one's own contributions and downplays the contributions of others.
I am more important than someone else.
I am more important than someone else. See, even though it's a mutually cooperative system, still, if you give it a critical thought, Brahmanas are the most important members of society here. See, when it comes to the body, suppose, you have a fracture in your arms, or maybe a fracture in your legs. It's serious, but it is not as serious as if your brain gets damaged. If your brain gets damaged, it becomes dysfunctional. So the head is the most important part of your body, isn't it?
Yeah.
So similarly, Brahmanas, they give direction to the entire society, and the Kshatriyas accept subordination to the Brahmanas. Whatever the Brahmana instructs, the Kshatriya follows. Because the Kshatriya understands See, Kshatriyas, they realize that they're dealing with passion. So in the course of administrating the kingdom, their passion can take over them, and sometimes they can end up punishing certain people more than they're supposed to be punished. Actually, punishment is supposed to do the job of maintaining balance and order in society. But sometimes, under the grip of passion, the ego takes over, and the Kshatriya might use the instrument of punishment to vent out his ego. So the Kshatriya understands his weakness. So what the Kshatriya does is, the Kshatriya puts himself voluntarily under a Brahmana and says that you guide me. Whenever I go off track, you should point out that I am going wrong here. Or else in the name of service, I might end up doing disservice.
Wrong. Correct.
Correct. So the Brahmana, the Kshatriya bows down to a Brahmana. Similarly, a Vaishya is subordinate to a Kshatriya, because a Vaishya understands I am making all this wealth, but this wealth can be taken away by someone else. Unless a Kshatriya protects me, I can't protect my wealth myself. So there is a hierarchy here.
Correct.
Brahmana is on the top of the hierarchy. Next come the Kshatriyas, next come the Vaishyas and the Shudras. Shudras are dependent upon all the other varnas.
Correct.
So there is a hierarchy, and that hierarchy brings about a kind of exploitative tendency. So the Brahmana thinks,
whatever I say is God said.
yeah, actually that's how it's supposed to be. But if the Brahmana, rather than understanding that I'm an instrument in the hands of God, starts seeing that I'm the all in all, then that is the downfall of the Brahmanas.
Correct.
So when ego takes over the system and Brahmanas start thinking that I can do anything and get away with it because I am the head of the society, that's when the system starts collapsing. And this collapsing of the system can be seen in Western history of the Western world. See, there is this Protestant revolution.
Yeah.
What is the Protestant revolution? Protestant revolution is when the priests were looked upon by the rest of society in the Western world also, because they were supposed to be representatives of God.
Yeah.
And then the priests, they started thinking that we can do anything. They started exploiting their position. That's when the Protestant revolution came over, and people started wondering, these people, they are becoming corrupt. Why should we follow them? Because they are not purely representing God. So we will directly connect with God. We don't require the middlemen, the priests, any longer. So that is the Protestant revolution. So the Protestant revolution indicates rejection of the Brahminical class.
It's similar, very similar. Yeah.
Similar to the Brahminical class in the Western world. See, when the Brahmanas are overthrown from society, who becomes most powerful? Kshatriyas. Because the Kshatriyas are kept in check by the Brahmanas. Once the Brahmanas are removed from the picture, Kshatriyas come into the exploitative mode full swing. They feel that whatever we do, we can do and get away with it. Anyway, the Vaishyas and the Shudras are dependent upon us. We can exploit the Vaishyas, tax them excessively. And when that happens, then the Vaishyas start wondering, this fellow, he has got no check and balance. And he is powerful than me, and we are the people who are creating wealth. Rather than acknowledging our contribution, this fellow is simply doing his dadagiri.
Yeah.
So let's overthrow these rulers also. So in the Western world, this is the French Revolution. Overthrowing of aristocracy. And when the aristocrats are overthrown, who becomes powerful now?
The Vaishyas.
Vaishyas. That is capitalism.
Yeah.
Vaishyas starts thinking that earlier the Vaishyas were kept in check. Kshatriyas used to keep the Vaishyas in check also, because the Vaishyas have this tendency of doing everything and anything to get more profits. They will put excessive pressure on the Shudras, exploit the Shudras. So when the Vaishyas had this tendency of exploitation to make more money, Kshatriyas used to stop them. But in the absence of the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas become all powerful. That is capitalistic society.
Right.
And that's what we see in the modern day world, capitalism. And when capitalism becomes excess, then the Shudras, they start wondering, these people, we are the people who are actually doing groundwork. And these people are making money sitting in their office.
Yeah.
If we rebel, these people can't survive. When the Shudras are up in arms, that is communist revolution.
Correct.
But then the communist revolution doesn't survive also, because see, none of these models is a sustainable model here.
Yeah.
Capitalism is not sustainable. Communist society is not sustainable either. The only sustainable order is a complete varana system, where Brahmanas are doing their duties
What they are
properly,
supposed to, and the others are doing what they are supposed
and
to.
everyone is doing it honestly.
Mm.
See, in the Varnashrama system, see, that's why it's called a Varnashrama system. Varana and Ashrama, they go hand in hand. You can't separate Varana from Ashrama. Very important thing here. If you simply have Varana system, what happens is this egoistic tendency will crop up. It's only a matter of time, because that's human nature. Brahmanas will think they are very important, and Kshatriyas will think they are. Ego will rise in the course of time. To keep this ego from rising, the ashrama system does the balancing act. What is the ashrama system? Ashrama system, which is brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyas, the entire ashrama system is centered around spiritual upliftment, spiritual development. So when spiritual development is the central focus of all the varanas through ashramas, through whatever ashramas they are following, when the central focus of everybody is not just material upliftment but also spiritual upliftment, then what happens is ego automatically is kept in check. Because the Brahmana understands, if the Brahmana is spiritually progressive also through the ashrama system, the Brahmana understands that ultimately I am a Brahmana for one lifetime. By the law of karma, if I don't behave, next lifetime I may not be a Brahmana, I may become an animal also. So rather than becoming unnecessarily puffed up, saying that I am a Brahmana, let me focus on spiritual upliftment and make liberation the purpose of my life, rather than excessively focusing on my material position and ruining my future. See, when spiritual upliftment becomes your focus, then material prosperity or material power doesn't get to your head.
Correct. And it automatically has to be at a lower level.
At a lower level. See, this Varnashrama system, it beautifully says how society can function smoothly when material prosperity and spiritual upliftment go hand in hand. When spiritual development is neglected, then what happens? Material prosperity becomes a central theme, and when material prosperity becomes a central theme, the society, no system can work.
Correct.
There will be internal conflict. The thing that prevents conflict is focus on spirituality. So that is why in the Vedic system, society used to function very smoothly with material prosperity also, because there should be cooperation. Cooperation used to happen. Why? Because people were spiritually mindful. In the absence of spiritual mindfulness, there is no question of cooperation in society.
Good.
So the Varnashrama system is lost today, and there is no question of bringing it back. Very difficult. It's extremely difficult. As I said, see, in the bygone eras, Varna of each, that inter-Varna marriage wasn't there. So it was like more or less clear cut. But in the modern day world, see, again, that the Varna system degraded into the caste system. Why? Because, again the ego problem. Parents are Brahmanas, and suppose the child doesn't have Brahminical qualities, but the parents, they, out of ego, they feel that, no, my child should be a Brahmana only.
Should do Brahman work.
Brahmana only. How can my child, because we are Brahmanas? So actually by, artificially calling child Brahmana, even though the child is not a Brahmana, they are ultimately not doing welfare for their own child also. Because if the child doesn't follow Varna and Ashrama properly, it won't be good for the upbringing of the child also. But they have got that short-sightedness. Why? Because they don't see the entire picture.
Correct.
Because of lack of spirituality. So that is why in the modern day world, it's very difficult to revive the Varna system, because genetics are all mixed up today. Genetics are totally mixed up in the modern. But nonetheless, this understanding of how spirituality, when it is brought to the focus, there can be a natural cooperation in society.
It was a well-oiled machine. It was designed to be a well-oiled machine.
Yes, that's
Until parts of it started.
And to understand this is very important. Why? Because, see, most of the time, Westerners, they tend to look down upon Indians. You people have this caste system. And yes, caste system is evil, 100%. But the origin of the caste system, which is the varana system, is purely scientific. It's perfect, pristine, and we should be proud of it. So we need to have a healthy understanding of this. So I thought of elaborating on it. So
yes, let's go.
As we proceed further, and then Krishna.
So in 47, he actually says that it's better to engage in one's own occupation.
Yeah, it is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's own nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So every varana has a tailor-made dharma for them. We were discussing it in the previous session also. So if you are performing, for example, Kshatriyas, because their occupation involves a lot of passion, they are sometimes allowed to gamble. That's why the Pandavas also ended up gambling. And sometimes the Kshatriyas, because it's part of their occupation to hone their military skills. So they're sometimes allowed to hunt. So suppose a Kshatriya hunts an animal. The animal that they are hunted, they're allowed to eat it. So sometimes Kshatriyas are allowed to eat meat, they're allowed to drink also, and they're allowed to. But these are leeways given to a Kshatriya because occupation involves passion.
Correct.
But then these are kind of leeways, but at the same time there are other things which counteracts that passion. So if the Kshatriya follows his Swadharma properly, in due course of time his consciousness is going to get uplifted. So to counteract these tendencies, the Kshatriya is also supposed to pay all respects to a Brahmana.
Yeah.
To subordinate that
these
passion.
are what I call edge cases. That's not the rule.
That's not
but
the
you're allowed to do that for different considerations.
Yeah. See, why I'm highlighting this particular thing is, see, many times, a lot of times, a person in the modern day world could be having some lineage of Kshatriya, and they take it as a license to engage in these activities. But that's not a license, because just because your lineage is that of Kshatriya doesn't mean that you can do these activities as and when you wish it. Because Kshatriya dharma is a package deal. You can't just focus on your rights and forget about your duties.
Correct.
So that is why Prabhupada, like as a modern acharya, he said that regardless of where you come from, for spiritual upliftment, because the varnashrama system cannot be followed any longer in its pure state. So everyone has to follow the four regulative principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. It's across the board.
Okay.
Because you don't have specific dharmas for different varnas any longer in the modern day world. So these four principles have to be followed by everybody for making spiritual advancement as Kali Yuga is going to progress. So anyway, we will continue next time.
Yes.
All right.
We get a deeper understanding of the varana system. The system categorizes individuals based on their psychophysical nature, not birth alone. It functions as an ecosystem where individuals contribute to the overall balance of society while simultaneously fulfilling their personal needs. This structure, when properly maintained, operates as a mutually cooperative system rather than a hierarchy of importance. Brahmans are peaceful and inclined toward the study, research and teaching of scriptures. They do not receive a fixed income to maintain their impartiality and avoid dependence, instead relying on charity. Kshatriyas are driven by passion. They are natural administrators and protectors. Because of their administrative power, they often voluntarily subordinate themselves to Brahmans to ensure that decisions remain guided by wisdom rather than ego. Vaishyas and Shudras focus on generating wealth and providing service respectively. The system is most effective when each member recognizes his specific role and works to support others. Under the Guru system, education was customized from a young age based on the child's natural inclination, with parentage acting as a secondary indicator. This approach allowed for early super specialization, enabling individuals to enter their productive life and achieve material stability much earlier than in modern educational models. A 2-year observation or probation period was used to finalize the appropriate varana for each student, ensuring their education aligned with their true nature. Thus, birth alone does not define the varana. However, the varana system collapses when ego-driven tendencies lead members to exploit their positions rather than serve society. To prevent the ego from corrupting the system, the varana system needs to be paired with the Ashrama system, which places spiritual development at the center of all activity. When spiritual upliftment is the priority, material prosperity does not lead to the misuse of power. As a general principle in modern times, we can pursue spiritual advancement by following 4 universal principles: refraining from meat consumption, avoiding intoxication, avoiding illicit sex, and abstaining from gambling. Krishna advises us that it is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly.